ダメだねダメよダメなのよあんたが好きで好きすぎてどれだけ強いお酒でも歪めない思い出がバカみたい
I wasn't actually planning on covering this movie so soon for the simple fact that I don't like it very much, in case you didn't catch that from my last video. But after one whole week of just thinking on what should I talk about next without anything coming to my mind, I decided to answer your request. So without further ado, let's discuss Frankenstein Conquers the World. By the way, we are already at 50 subscribers. Any chance of making it to 100 by the end of the year?
You serious?
If you recall my video on King Kong vs Godzilla, you must remember that back in the early 60s, some crazy Americans pitched to Toho the idea of a movie with Frankenstein battling King Kong, which then turned into King Kong battling an original monster called Prometheus, which eventually became Kong vs Godzilla. The original idea never left the mind of Tomoyuki Tanaka though, and the man eventually commissioned writer Takashi Kimura to produce a draft for a follow-up of King Kong vs Godzilla titled Frankenstein vs Godzilla. As the filmmakers thought the script was not making any sense, an uncharacteristic sensible thing for these guys to think, I know, they dropped Godzilla from the story and replaced him with Baragon, a character created specifically for the film. Not that the story started making any sense after this change, mind you. Everything its sequel had in drama and heart, this one has in... It's a very weird movie, guys, you will see why. Our film opens in the last days of World War II, as German officials board a mysterious container inside a submarine, later transferring it to a Japanese vessel in the middle of the Pacific, as if the Axis forces ever coordinated to do anything. The Jerrys get spotted by an American plane and sunk right there, but the other submarine gets away, eventually making it to Japan, where they deliver the package to a research center at Hiroshima. There we find out the elusive content of the box, a disembodied but still beating heart, who according to the scientists at the place is said to belong to none other than the Frankenstein monster himself, an immortal being capable of reconstructing his entire body from a single cell. From this heart, the Germans were planning on creating an entire army of invincible warriors to turn the tide of the war. Too bad there was no time left for them to do any of this, having to hide the damn thing with their paws over in Asia. Oh well, since it's here, might as well start doing some research on it. Flash forward 15 years, a strange, ghoulish creature is spotted hunting down small animals in the region around the city of Hiroshima. What was first thought to be a monster of some sort is actually revealed to be just a special needs kid. As it turns out, the kid is the Frankenstein monster, who regenerated itself from the heart lost so many years ago. Something concluded based on his clearly Caucasian looks. What, doesn't he look European to you? And by the fact his hand grows back after being chopped off. Also, the chopped hand keeps on moving by itself. Not only that, but as a side effect of being irradiated by the atomic bomb, as we all know, radiation has awesome side effects, Frankenstein starts growing to humongous proportions, and fast, and so does his hand. So now we have a being of erratic and potentially dangerous behavior who sooner rather than later breaks free from the facility where he was being lovingly contained and starts roaming around the Japanese countryside, while attracting the fire of Japan's military, who needs a big enough target to practice their aim on. Despite growing to Godzilla sizes, Frankenstein still looks like some dude in heavy makeup. You see, I personally believe that our suspension of disbelief in this kind of movie is directly related to the fact that the monsters were people covered from head to toe in very cumbersome rubber costumes that more often than not completely hid the actors' humanoid figures. Even in the case of monsters that do have more humanoid silhouettes, the costumes were still all-concealing, and left as little as possible of the performer's feature to be seen through all the rubber and fur. Frankie here is probably the very first, and very likely only, case of a giant monster intentionally made to resemble a human being, even if this human has huge-ass prosthetic forehead, which, combined to the furry rags he wears, makes him look less like a monster and more like an overgrown caveman. I'm glad they dialed back on the human looks of the creatures for the following film, as Sanda and Gaira have both much more remarkable and believable designs. But his looks is just one of the reasons why the illusion of Frankenstein being a ginormous creature is completely lost on me. More importantly, however, is the fact that most of the monster action in this movie is in regular speed, instead of the slower one in which the sequences are usually shot to give the impression of weight to the creatures. Some of it looks even speed up in a matter of fact, so instead of looking like a brawl between massive titans, this looks like exactly what it is, people rolling in the dirt. This was also corrected in the following film, much to my satisfaction. This is my main and most distinctive peeve with the movie, however. The rest of the video is just going to be me bitching about much of the same stuff I already pointed out about Rodan, War of the Gargantuas and other Kaoru Mabuchi scripts. But I need to do it anyway to drive home some points about the movie, so let's go. Who is it that Frankenstein rolls in the dirt with anyway? Well, Baragon, of course, as the title of the movie indicates. He appears completely out of nowhere with the single objective of making the protagonist's life harder, not unlike Rodan, both of them. I am aware that this was a trend among kaiju movies back in the day, but my main problem in this case is that Baragon is introduced like with half an hour of movie left, leaving little room for him to have any real impact on the plot, proven by the fact that he is completely inconsequential to the title character's eventual demise at the very end. You know, I used to like Baragon mostly due to his appearance in one of my favorite Godzilla movies, but after rewatching all the films in order, I came to the conclusion that, like, screw Baragon, it should have been Angerus in that movie. Why did I even like that big ear bozo in the first place? Oh yeah, that's why. Speaking of Baragon, let's talk about what happens after his defeat. So basically, Henry Saperstein, the movie's producer who had also produced King Kong vs Godzilla, really liked the giant cephalopod who fights Kong in that movie, and asked the filmmakers to do something like that exclusively for the American cut of the flick. The crew then shot a sequence with a monstrous mollusk coming out of the ocean. It then drags Frankenstein into the depths, and that's how the movie ends. Unless you've watched the original ending of it, in which the earth beneath Frankenstein's feet just sinks, swallowing him whole. Then the movie ends. Which ending is more anticlimactic is up to you, I guess. Saperstein, for one, deemed the sequence with the octopus unsatisfactory at the end of the day, going with the original ending for the American release instead, which didn't stop Toho from accidentally airing the octopus version for the film on TV more than a few times, and eventually releasing the alternative ending with the home releases of the movie. And the octopus will later appear again in the opening minutes of War of the Gargantuas, so its memory lives on. That scene with Kong was cool though. Like I said, most of the problems from this movie were actually common among Kaoru Mabuchi scripts, what ultimately makes for a movie that would be extremely unremarkable if not for how odd it is, even for kaiju movie standards. Frankenstein's heart not this a still moving disembodied hand, a caveman kid who grows immense, an octopus. For all its faults, you can't say this isn't one of the most unique monster movies from Toho's catalog. The filmmakers threw pretty much everything they could at the wall and almost nothing stuck, but it's the sum of the parts that counts, even if the sum looks like a rough, disjointed patchwork. Like Frankenstein's monster. That's the joke, you can go home now. That was the punchline. I have to stop doing this, they are so hard.